What does it take to be free? Except just to open. What does it take to love? Except just to open. These aren't complicated things. But our mind will ask, well, how do I open? How do I do that? And there's lots of, like I said, tricks of the trade. There are a lot of things you can do, some spiritual practices, forms of inquiry that can help you to open. But at some point, often what gets revealed at the very bottom, the very sort of deep down in the core, is the primal resistance to being open on all these different levels. Openness of mind, openness of heart, openness of perspective, which really means not clinging or grasping at any perspective, even the awakened perspective, because many of you that have experienced the awakened perspective, you know how the mind often tends to try to grasp at it and define it through defining it, trying to hold on to it. And all these attempts, all these maneuvers, are really just maneuvers of trying to remain in control. We can't remain in control in this sense and be open and free at the same time. In other words, we can't be closed and open at the same time. We tend to either be closed or open, but we can't be closed and open. It's a contradiction at the deepest possible way. And so at some point you have to face the raw experience of whatever it is, however that contraction is experienced without trying to run from it. It's one of the reasons that I suggest that people do meditation. I don't suggest that people practice meditation so they get really, really good at meditating, because you can easily misuse meditation. And I think it very often is misused. By that I mean meditation can be used as a means of grasping control. It just happens in a subtle, sophisticated, and spiritual way. And so we can actually use meditation, or we can even use spiritual inquiry as a way not to encounter ourselves completely, but to actually be hiding from ourselves to a very deep degree. But in something as simple as meditation, what all you're doing is sitting and opening yourself to whatever is directly happening at that moment. And if it's unpleasant, the mind will often ask, what do I do with it? Which really means, how do I get rid of it? How do I remain in control of it? How do I go from this unpleasurable experience to something that's more pleasurable? Of course, people don't ask me what do I do if they're feeling really good, if they're feeling open and free, or if they're feeling love, or if they're feeling bliss. Nobody comes to me and says, what do I do with my bliss? How do I get rid of it? How do I get beyond my sense of openness? How do I get beyond my sense of love? Because in many ways, the ego wants these things, but the problem is it wants openness, it wants freedom, it wants love, but it also wants to remain in control. Because at the bottom of it is fear. Because in reality, there's no security. There's no security in the awakened state. You can't even use the awakened state as something to grasp onto for security, because then you take the awakened state and you turn it into a delusion that you're grasping onto. So we can't ultimately use the awakened state, the state of openness, of deep and profound openness. We can't use it for anything. nor are we going to stay in some very, very high state. And I think this is also one of the resistances of the egoic mindset, is that egoic mindset also wants to remain in a special place, preferably highly pleasurable, highly pleasurable, and highly special. A special, pleasurable state all the time. And that's just not how realization works. People are trying to stay in those kind of states all over the world. They've been trying to do it for thousands of years. And they've been using all sorts of means to try to do it, to try to attempt it. But at the core, so much of it is an attempt to evade oneself, is an attempt to not see the whole truth.